Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Kate McMahon, and I am the host of Profile. And I'm very excited to introduce you all to Tom Wilson. Tom, welcome.
Hi, it's nice to be here today.
And Tom is a candidate for Select Board in the town of Chatham. And we're really here today to talk a bit about the agenda and what is important to you going forward in the town of Chatham.
Sure. Let me give you a little bit about my background
Great.
before we get to the agenda. So, my wife Jane and I have had our house in Chatham since 1999. And my daughter and son-in-law now live in Chatham, and our two grandsons, one's in the middle school and one's in the elementary school. But in terms of my working career, I worked for Pepperidge Farm for 27 years down in Norwalk, Connecticut. And prior to that, I owned my own business for 3 years in Newton, Mass. And then I was an elementary school teacher in Dorchester and Andover for 7 years. So I've had a varied career, but my time at Pepperidge Farm really gave me some background in, I did customer service work for them for a while, and then I did some sales management work. So in the customer service area, I developed very good listening skills and was able to understand what the issues were with somebody and then work towards a resolution. And in sales management, I had objectives every year that I had to deliver on. And so I'm very goal focused and had a very successful career in terms of sales management. But when I retired in 2012, it took us a couple of years to sell our house in Connecticut. And when we settled into living in Chatham in our house full time, I wanted to serve the community. And so I applied to be on the Airport Commission and spent 3 years serving on that. And currently I'm Chatham's rep to the Cape Cod Commission, and I'm also on Chatham's Charter Review Committee. So I believe in service to the town. I think serving the town on a board or committee or volunteering for an organization in town or even just being in the audience at a meeting leads to better government and a better town.
I agree. Thanks for your involvement there. And it does sound like your professional experience really helped lead up to what you're doing currently for the town of Chatham. And it also sounds like you probably have very little time to hang out with those grandboys of yours.
Well, through COVID, we've made a point of having lunch with them out in the yard at least 1 or 2 days a week. And both families now have 6-month-old puppies. And so we bring our puppies over and they chase each other in the yard and get exhausted, and then we can go home and watch our puppies take a little nap for a while. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So can we talk a little bit about what is important to you in the town of Chatham right now?
Well, I've been coming to Chatham. My family would bring us for a 2 weeks vacation back in the early 60s and would rent a little cottage and go to Harding's Beach. So I've known Chatham for quite a long time. And as I said, we've owned our house since 1999. So what's important to me is maintaining the character and well-being of the whole community. And for me, some of the ways that translates is to preserving Chatham Elementary School. There are challenges with enrollment, and recently school administration put forward a proposal of a regional subdivided elementary school. And I heard pretty clearly, listening to that forum, that Chatham parents really want to maintain our own elementary school. And so I want to work towards that. And it's encouraging to see that this year, in speaking with the principal at the elementary school, that there'll be 2 classes of kindergarten students. And so that's a big improvement over recent history.
That's great.
So preserving the elementary school is one thing. Appropriate housing options is another. And by that I mean we have seniors who are in bigger homes who may want to downsize their home. And we have local workforce who want to be able to live in Chatham, but there really aren't those kind of opportunities. And then related to the enrollment at the schools is the challenge for young families to be able to live in Chatham. So there are some initiatives on our town warrant this year, which I hope the voters' support and push forward in terms of affordable and attainable housing. But one of the things I see is the need for year-round rentals, because having year-round rentals would really give us options that we don't have today. And when you look to places like Orleans and what they're doing with the Cape Cod 5 corporate office, and that they're making 60 plus units of affordable housing there, Chatham needs to be ready to do something like that to address this housing issue. And so year-round rentals for me are a good starting point for us.
Right. Well, they're all related to the school and maintaining that character. Additionally, you had mentioned return to public comments during agenda discussions at select board meetings. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, previously, when the select board had an agenda, there'd be 4 or 5 items on there. And as they had their discussion about that agenda item, then the public could get up and comment on it before the select board voted. Well, recently they've changed that, and they've brought all of the public comments to early on in the meeting. And to me, it kind of disconnects from the whole process. And to me, it feels like we're more removed from being involved in the decision making. And so I'd like to see it return to how it was. And I think a number of people I've spoken to as I've gone around town and knocked on doors and introduced myself and shown my little brochure, a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah. And also in this last year with all the Zooms we've been doing, that probably adds another level of complexity to those meetings.
Yes, it does. It does. But again, I think more participation and more involvement in the conversation is what leads to better government.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. Now, also the senior center, I know that that's been front and center in Chatham as well. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, it's an interesting story. I live on a street, a cul-de-sac, and we're kind of on the corner as it leads out to Route 28. And one of my neighbors, an old dear friend who's no longer with us, but one day Bob Norman was driving by my house and he said, "I'm going to the senior center for a men's talk group, and would you like to come with me?" And so I went. And it was an hour of conversation in a room with about 15 to 20 gentlemen. And it was moderated and it was stimulating. And you got to see this varied background of the people who live in Chatham. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. And I've been a regular at that meeting ever since. And so I'm a user of our existing Council on Aging. And one of the things I see there is it's not a building that's very welcoming for people with limited mobility. So if you're a walker, a cane, a wheelchair, this building wasn't constructed to let you get through a corridor or a stairwell without other people moving out of the way. And so as I hear people say, that building's good enough, it isn't good enough. It's undersized. And because it's undersized, it's underutilized. And with the growing senior population that we have in Chatham, I think we really need a new facility. And what's on the table at this year's town meeting is a building at 1610 Main Street, which is in West Chatham. And to me, that's a perfect site for it, because they recently put in roundabouts and the speed limit through West Chatham on Route 28 has decreased from 40 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour. So in terms of just getting into and out of the building, it should be very easy for seniors to handle. And the other thing it does is it adds a community anchor to the West Chatham neighborhood center that the town is trying to develop. And so as you come into Chatham, either as a senior or as a visitor, and you see this new, wonderful building, you're going to know how much Chatham respects their seniors and values their contribution to our town. And so I'm hoping that we get a strong turnout at this year's town meeting, and that we get support from the younger families in town and from all of the seniors, and that we get the 2/3 vote that we need to put up a new senior center. Because as somebody who uses the existing one, I see its shortcomings, and I see how much more a part of the community a new senior center could be.
That's great. So what else would you like to share with our viewers today? What did we miss chatting about?
One of the things that's important to me is supporting our blue economy, our fishermen. You know, Chatham harbors bring in, the last year I have data for is 2017, they brought in 28 million pounds of live tonnage into Chatham. And so keeping access to our harbors is very important to the fishermen and their livelihood. And we've struggled over the last couple of years with storms and shifting sands and having to dredge our harbors. I think it's time that we invested in our own dredge and had it available, because we don't know when those kind of storms are going to strike and when we may need to use it. So that's another issue that's important to me.
And the fishing industry has always been a big part of the Chatham community as well.
The last thing would be, as I'm out knocking on doors and introducing myself to people, you know, I hear a lot about tear downs and development of larger homes on smaller lots and so forth. And as I look back, I think our local comprehensive plan goes all the way back to 2003 and hasn't been updated. And typically that gets done on a 10-year cycle. So we're overdue for that. And by focusing on that, we could then start to address some of these issues that I'm hearing people are concerned about in terms of what development in Chatham is going to look like in the future.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you for being with me today. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience?
Absolutely. What I'd like to say is please come to the June 12th town meeting at the ball field. And I'm asking for your support for our senior center and for our affordable housing initiatives. But the Thursday after that is June 17th, and that's Election Day in Chatham, and I'd really appreciate your support at the polls. I think it's time for a new voice and a fresh perspective on our select board, and I hope you'll consider me on June 17th. Thank you very much.
And until next time, thank you for watching Profile.